Hello and welcome. I wanted to wait and record this one because I'm a little sick, but we can't really wait any longer. It's Saturday, so we're going to go ahead and record it. And I apologize if my voice sounds weird or my breathing's a little rough. But this is episode 45, Transferal, or I prefer to believe, Transferal. This is a Sam episode, so the classification number is there. I'm not going to read that out every time with all the X's, because I always get the number wrong. But this is an interesting episode. There's some exposition, and if you've listened to archives, you already know most of the exposition. But there are some interesting things brought up, such as, yet again, Melanie brings up why her and Georgie didn't have domains. She mentions that it because by working for the Institute, she had like a backstage pass, and then, of course, Georgie had no fear. But we know that Martin had a domain. So is it that they didn't have domains? Because Basira was chasing Daisy, and in some ways that kind of was her domain, right? That was her own personal hunt. But is it that they didn't have domains, or is it just that Melanie had a special exemption because she removed her own eyes and cut the eyes from her, basically? Who knows? But interesting to think about all the same. Then we have the talk about the nightmares, the domain nightmares, which is a horrifying aspect to think of, and of course they would. I think we mentioned that a little bit before, that people would probably have been having nightmares about it, so of course they would. And Sam is like, there's some argument to be made, and it's referenced in the episode, that he and this version, Archives World Sam, might be fusing. I don't know if I think that's what's happening. My personal theory is that the fears are seeing Sam and thinking that's the other Sam, and so they're still feeding those nightmares to him to try and feed off him some more. And when I say the fears, obviously the fears have left, but whatever fear radiation is left in this world that is causing that to happen. Because from what it seems like, he was having a nightmare of that Sam's domain, which he shared with Alice in this world. And if that is how that works, then that is terrifying to think of, because it also leads to some more implications of the soul, right? Because the two Darrens of the doppelgangers, they were very similar but slightly different, right? Is the soul close enough that it can still be recognized? And if so, is the archivist actually after whoever their version is in this world to try and become more? To try and become more of who they are? It's hard to say, but they could just be fusing as well. The memory of Sam, the shard of his soul that lingers still in the world, as it were, merging with this Sam that has come. It's tough to say, but is this going to be a Final Fantasy XIV situation where all the dimensions splintered off from one? I almost said shattered. Splintered off from one dimension, and all these different versions of people are just pieces of each other? Hard to say, but terrifying dream. And the fact that Protocol Sam is afraid of skeletons because of what he saw in the Institute, and Archive Sam, bone was a big thing in his domain. Definitely interesting. Definitely interesting. Also, Sam mentions 3 times that the bone cuts like a bright and sharp knife. And I just, if it's mentioned 3 times, I'm going to write it down, you know? But Melanie gets to talking to him about what happened in Towerfall and before that and everything there. Talks a little bit about John. Sam immediately perks up at that, you know? And then also, Melanie mentions that the severance was rough. That's why she didn't leave sooner. Oof. Because he doesn't know that she had to take her eyes out. They talk about domains. They talk about how Melanie and Georgie didn't have one, like I mentioned. And then they get to the Admiral being mentioned, which is great. Loved an Admiral safe and sound. Love that every time. And then they get to talk about how they're going to handle the Archivist. And then they talk about Celia. And there's a lot of fun in this episode, there really is, but it's this final realization that I think is going to push Sam forwards of, no, Celia knew where he was going. She knew what she was doing. This was not we got there and this thing's trying to take me back home now and I'm going to push him instead. She knew the whole time what she was doing. And you got to feel for Sam here because he realizes he's been completely played. And there's a little reference here of Georgie saying she got out, which obviously to escape this world, right? To escape from it all. There's a reference of maybe she doesn't know about Towerfall, implying that she got out before the fears left this world, which if so, that has some very interesting implications. But there's so many questions. How did Celia get out with it being in the air? Was it in the air all along? Was it a crack that... I say in the air. The crack would have been hilltop, right? But Sam fell from in the air. So going in from the hilltop side, would that still have brought you there? Or going back through brings you... Has it moved? What? There's so many questions. I feel really bad because I don't have a lot more like alchemically or interesting there to talk about. But the fact that domains are shared, we talked about that before. That's terrifying, right? The air conditioners are kicked up. The fact that Sam is inheriting the domain and that Alice, when he called her name, it wasn't very clear if it was fear for her or fear of her. And this Alice has mentioned is a dreamer, so she spends a lot of time in those dreams or trying to get to those dreams so that she can be back with Sam again, her Sam. It's just sad. And like Melanie coming in to save him with an iron poker, that's fun. I like Melanie a lot, but Melanie King has always been wonderful. But no, it was a good episode. Basira and Georgie not liking that Sam had this nightmare. Basira making the comment about as long as he doesn't start growing eyes, and then there's big silence. But it's the big reveals of Celia, and I think it's going to be important that Sam mentions Starkwall. I think that's going to matter. But also Basira, like, really wanting to go after the Archivist, wanting to put all this to bed. I don't know. I feel like we're building to something, and this was a very good build episode. It gave us some more insights that I think are going to be super important for later on, but I just don't think it's that much to talk about. You know, everything's kind of straightforward. There's a lot of exposition in the best ways, but let me know your thoughts. It could just be because I'm sick that I'm not thinking clearly and I missed a big thing, but I'm really interested in where we're going with this idea of she got out and the Archivist might be coming here looking for John, and if so, what that means. And it's interesting. I like it. I wanted to mention one thing real quick before we close here, that Georgie mentions they don't have 3 good teams. There aren't many first wave wardens left, and you wouldn't take rookies. And a first wave warden, I'm assuming, are the ones that would go into the square line, right? I keep calling it the square mile. I think it's the square line. And they would deal with it. There's not many of them left. She only has rookies. And I feel like the rest of the world is going to try and just move on. And I think this might get worse before it gets better because the people that care don't seem like they're doing much about it. But I'm interested. I think we're building to some big stuff, but we are still building. And this was very much a building episode. Good information that will be useful for later, but that isn't going much further now. I'm not going to try and stretch this thing out to 10 minutes, even though YouTube would really like me to. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. And until next time, I've been Trey. This has been The Full Spectrum. Remember to always enjoy the full spectrum. Hold on. One more thing I wanted to mention. Why I mentioned souls and splinters of souls earlier. Souls, very important in alchemy, right? The soul matters. It's tied to salt. And I was sort of joking earlier about the splintering the souls thing, though that could be somebody did an alchemical experiment many years ago, split the world into multiple dimensions and split the souls between them, and things are trying to find that. But if they were, you would think that the doppelgangers would have been merging or fusing with them as well, so that could be a non sequitur. But the soul is important also because in a lot of mysticism, creatures, things made from the materials of the matter of the universe, right? Things made from the elements can see the soul as well. So just something to mention, that the fears might be seeing Sam's soul and thinking that he's the other Sam. Or it could just be they see him and think he's the other Sam because they look the same. Let me know your thoughts. I've been Trey. This has been The Full Spectrum. Remember to always enjoy the full spectrum that Magnus Protocol has to offer.